My job as pastor is not to teach you the ordeal. My job is to teach you the ideal. Whatever condition you experience now, I am not supposed to reduce God's standard to your conditions. Please forgive me if you're feeling funny this morning. I have to teach the ideal. We got to get men to come up to God's standard, not bring God's standard down to man's problems. And if you are a man here today, I hope that this message will cause you to act quickly and say, honey, you're 14 years old, but let's go for lunch. Why? God spoke to me today. I need to talk to you. I need you to talk to me. Your son is 28 years old. They still don't know you. Call him and say, son, forgive me. I have not been a perfect father, but I'm going to make up because you got another 80 years to live. Let me at least try and get 5 more in and do it right so you can do good with your son. Make up. The daughters in here are starving for their fathers. You know, here's something I thought was interesting. And when I read this, I was concerned about the impact of it. Jesus got these things from his father. Write them down. Every woman, write them down. Every male, write them twice. I did research in the New Testament on the life of Jesus and his father. And here's what I got from these verses. I researched it for almost 7 years to find out what made God a successful father and what made Jesus Christ a successful son. And here's what I found. Number 1, he got his identity from his father. Number 2, he got his work from his father. He said, I and my father are one. Remember that? In other words, who do you identify with? A friend or your daddy? Some young men in this room are being brought up by a buddy. They identify more with their friends than they do with their own father. And they become like their buddies instead of like their father. Can you say, I am like my father? I and my father are one? Let me ask another question. Does your son want to be like you? Does your daughter feel good to say, that's my daddy? Or are they ashamed of you? Do they identify you as their father? Or they just call you that old man? My old man. The second one, his work. Christ says, I came to do the work that my father does. He says, for my father is working, and so I work. I work the work of my father. Where does your children get their work ethic from? And also, can you also inspire them to work? Do they see you as a worker? Can you provide work for them to do? I mentioned to you last time that one of the greatest mysteries I believe we're missing is having our children work in the family business. While you're working on a job, I want you to do something. I want you to work on a business while you're working so you can build a business for your sons. Because whenever your kids are working for someone else, they are making that other person wealthy. Yes, go back to work. Don't get me wrong. Don't quit job tomorrow. But go back to work. But when the Bible says work in the morning, plant your seeds, but in the evening, let not your hands be idle, because you know not which one will prosper you. That means you go to the job in the morning, but make sure you do something in the evening that your kids could inherit. You know, Dr. Barry, thinking about you, your daughter this morning. Isn't that beautiful? His daughter want to be just like her daddy. She said, I want to be an orthodontist. He's an orthodontist. He has his own business. And now his kids are not wondering about the future. Can I get employed? Will there be a job? He's provided work. She's going to do the work that her father works. She's going to work her father's work. But we're not being taught to think this way. Eh? We've been taught, get a job, settle down, pay a mortgage till you die. The reason why I'm teaching this is not to bring you guilt, but to change the future for your life and your children. My job is to make you just like God. Build something that your kids could inherit. He got his work from his father. The third thing he got from his father was his purpose. He says, I came to complete the work my father sent me to do. Do you give your children purpose in life? Son, I'm sending you off to school because I got a plan. I want you to go and complete this degree because, you know, we got to do this thing the next 40 years and you're going to take it over. That's giving your sons purpose. I came to do the work my father sent me to do. God the Father provided the work for the Son, and that became his purpose. Fourthly, he got his heritage from his father. He says, I came from the Father. The Father sent me, and I'm going back to my Father. He had a sense of heritage. Does your children feel that they can be proud of the family name? There are people who don't want you to know who their father is. They're ashamed of the name. I've known some people who actually use their maiden names. Or they changed their names because the father messed up. Ladies and gentlemen, again, and I feel this today, my job is to teach you the truth, not to appease what you are experiencing. If we're going to heal our country, we need to bring men back to the standard of God. Are you giving your children a heritage as a father? Number 5, he got his power from his father. This is important. I remember when I first got my first loan from the bank. I came out of college, 1980, had no money, started working for the government, got my first paycheck, walked into the bank, you know, sis, and I said, I got to buy a piece of property, you know, because I'm thinking about my own family now. I got to build my own heritage. And here I am, 1980, young guy, walking into the bank, and the girl at the bank says, I read your application, but you don't qualify. She said, how long you been working? I said, can't you see? That's a dumb question. I just got from college. By the way, you bankers need to check those folks who interview people. Dumbest questions I ever seen. And then she said, well, we can't give you a loan because you have no history with that bank. I said, lady, I just got home from college. What do you expect? Dumbest questions I ever heard. Anybody heard them questions? See your hands. Anyone have questions? See? Am I the only one? You ever had them questions asked? Come on, let me see them. Don't be ashamed. Yeah, I see some hands there. Strangest questions. So anyhow, I got so frustrated with the young lady. I said, you know, let me talk to your manager. And she said, you don't need to talk to him. I'm the loan officer. Excuse me. Can I please see the manager? She said, but I don't know why you need to see him. He's going to say the same thing. And she picked up the phone and she called him. And he said, come in. I went in. Walked to his office. He stood up. And he smiled. He said, you Matthias' son. Watch this. My father's name is Matthias. Anyone who knows him well calls him Tias. He said, you Tias boy. I said, yes, sir. He said, have a seat. He said, what's your problem? I said, I need a loan to buy a piece of property. He said, so what's the problem? I said, the loan officer is assuming that I cannot afford this, nor can I handle this. He said, but he works for the government. He said, I know your daddy for the last 40 years, man. What's your problem? You get the loan, okay? I know your daddy. The power of a father's name. Do you give your kids power? Can they use your reputation to make it through life? Or do people say, your daddy? You want him to sign for you? No way. Do you embarrass your children because of your life? He got his power. I like what Jesus said. He says, I came because my Father sent me. And he said, and if you believe my Father, you'll believe me, he says. He tied his success to his Father's reputation. If you knew my Father, he says, you would know me. Is that what you're giving your son and daughter? My daughter said to me the other day, she said, Daddy, when I get married, I still can use my name, Munroe. I said, but no, you can't do that. She said, I don't care. She said, Munroe strong. So everywhere I go, all over America, when they say Munroe, they say, are you? She said, yes, I'm Myles, no daughter. They say, come right in. She said, I don't want to lose that. So my answer was, make sure the guy you marry got a name as strong as mine. He got his power from his Father. And number 6, he got his authority. He said, I came to you in my Father's name. My Father sent me. And if you knew who my Father was, you would listen to my words, he says. Are you giving your children authority? Number 7, he got his legitimacy from his Father. His Father made him legal. He says, I am here because my Father sent me. And because my Father sent me, I know who I am. Number 8, he got his destiny from his Father. He said, I came from my Father and I'm going back to my Father. His future was in his Father. Do you give your children a destiny where they can go into the family's name and say, this name is living forever? I'm going to keep this name proud and alive. You know, my father today didn't have property to give us, didn't have land to give us, didn't have a house to give us. We didn't get tangible things from our father. But the most important thing our father gave us was his name. I walk around the country and people say, I know your daddy. And guess what? The Bible says a good son becomes a blessing to his father. My father been telling me lately some strange thing. My father says, you know, son, everywhere I go, they say, so you is Myles Munroe daddy. It's reversed now. They say, oh yeah, I know your son. Can you live in such a way that your kids can use your name to make it through life? It's a heavy load. He got his family from his father. He said, my father loves me, and I love the Father, and I do the things that please him. He said, if you don't believe me, my Father believes me. You know what? When you go into the world as a son, most of the folks don't believe you. But you okay if your daddy believes. Your family got to back you up. The Father gives you the support when the whole world abandons you. My heart hurts for the single mothers because they don't have this long list. And they got to battle. They got to be father and mother to a daughter. That's why God would bring you into the church like this and say, look, let Pastor Myles adopt your child. Why? If she needs someone to tell her how to live, what to do, who to marry, bring the guy to me. Let me check him out. Why? Because she needs a father to protect her. And I'm telling you now, I have adopted all the young women in this room who have no father. You are now my kids. And if anybody beats you, let me see where they are. Show me where they live. I will kill them and tell God they died. We need protection. And it comes from our Father. And finally, number 10, he got his message from his Father. You know, this is important. Do your children repeat what you say? Jesus said, I only say the words my Father tells me to say. Where do you get your language from, sir? Some young men are cursing because they heard their father cursing. Some men talk about sex because they hear their father talking about sex. Some men talk about women because they hear their father talking about women. In other words, some men just do what their father do because that's the message they got from their father. Some men have sweethearts because their father had sweethearts. What is the message you're giving your son or your daughter? A good father provides the message for his children. Your kids repeat what you say. And to you single mothers, be careful of the men that come into your children's life, because they're looking for a father image. And if a man comes to shack it with you, you in trouble twice, because now that kid is confused. You ain't never been to the altar, so they ain't going to no altar. That's the message they got. You can sleep without going to the altar. What are you telling your kids just by your life? Jesus said, I only do what I see my Father do. My goodness, did you hear that? I only do what I see my Father does. He had a mother named Mary. He never said he does what he sees his mother does. That means, you single women, the man in your life is who your kids are watching. I was talking to a young man recently. He said, you know, every time I woke up, my mother had another man in the house, a different one. He said, I hate women. He says, why I'm homosexual. He wasn't born that way. He was made that way by what he saw. He saw men abusing his mother. He became angry at his mother, who allowed it. I wonder what's the message you are giving to your children. Everything you do, they watch it. I'm going to say it again. They're not watching the woman. They're watching the man in the woman's life. Or maybe the men. So they're watching. They're getting the cues from the male. When you commit adultery, you're not messing up your own family only. You're destroying the kids of the other person you are having adultery with. It's a social problem. Faithfulness is a national security issue.